Thank you for tuning in to the best parenting show on the internet, Post Daily Dose.
It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post.
Hey, good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Post Daily Dose with me, your trusted parenting advisor, faithful guide and servant on the healing journey. What's my name? Big Papa Brian+Post. Hope everyone's doing fantastic this wonderful manic Monday. I have had a delightfully relaxing day, and it's some sun, so it's beautiful here in California. So just doing well. Hope you guys are doing well also. In tonight's episode, I thought we'd talk about how to soothe the porcupine. Had a question from a mom about how to soothe a 15-year-old who won't accept cuddles. And then I'm going to touch on anger and control a little bit also, because that was another question that came up. So the question was how to comfort a 15-year-old who may not receive cuddling. So, my oldest daughter, who's 24 now, she stopped letting me cuddle her when she was probably about 15, maybe even a little younger, maybe 14. I think it's probably consistent for both my girls. Even Marley didn't stop letting me cuddle her after about probably 12. And it's just, some kids, it's just a, hey, Stefan, hey, Kirsten from the Netherlands. It's just one of those things where they just don't feel comfortable. I mean, they're in the peak of adolescence, and that level of intimacy, that level of sensory activation, just doesn't feel comfortable. And I think it's that's fine. That's a good thing for kids. Hey, Mimi, and hey, Amy, and that's a good thing. So, but here's what I want you to realize is that it's not always the case. Sometimes we will reserve like cuddling or attempting to cuddle our children or snuggle them because we fear that they may reject us, right? And we don't even make the effort. So I've always encouraged, make the effort, especially if your child is in a state of distress. But comforting and cuddling and soothing, I think there's a couple of components there. It has to be not for you. It has to be for the child. See, that's the important. When it's for the child, when it's to meet the needs of the child and what the child may be needing from you, you can be more attuned to exactly what manner they need you to be able to comfort them. Because comforting could simply be being present to them, sitting with them in the same room, listening to them, telling them that you understand, encouraging them to tell you more, to let it out, to continue sharing, that you can accept it and that it's okay to express their feelings. There's a great deal of comfort just in that. It doesn't have to be, snuggling and touching and all that kind of stuff. And we really have to be cautious with that your attempts and your efforts to snuggle or touch your child isn't more for you to make yourself feel better under the auspices of making them feel better. So if your child is resisting physical affection, that's okay. Take a step back, slow down. Like physical affection could be a pat on the foot. It could be a back rub. It could be a side hug. Whatever is needed from the recipient is what's important, not from the person who is giving. So you just want to, if your child's 15 and he's upset, sometimes it's just being present to him and just listening to him and giving him the emotional support that what he's feeling is okay. So it doesn't have to be cuddling, but I will also say don't reserve cuddling just because your child is a teenager, because some teenagers still very much love to cuddle. And I would encourage you as parents who can still provide physical comfort to your children, do it as long as you can, as much as you can, as long as they will allow you, and make that a part of the relationship if at all possible. But again, you just gotta be as Stefan says, you adapt and attune to your child. You got to be attuned to what your child's needs are, and you don't want to go over their window of tolerance. Then we also had a question come in about from an adoptive foster mom who's got, it looked like something like maybe close to 10 kids, adopted and foster kids, maybe 6 to 10. And she said, some of the younger ones they have a lot of control and anger issues. Well, that gave me a little shiver. That's so interesting, because my first internal response to that is as they should. They have control and anger issues, as they should. What they've gone through justifies on every level why they should want to try to be in control of everything. They've probably had, maybe not the best circumstances, but they've had familiar circumstances ripped from them without any asking, is this what you want? Without any consideration for how they feel and what they're going through. And so control is a natural reaction to stress and fear. The moment we move into stress and fear, we move into control. I always say the only time you need to control is when you're scared. And this is as apt for parents. The only time you need to control is when you're scared. And so if you're going through this situation with a child who's controlling, not only is it scary for them, it's probably also equally scary for you. So they're moving into control. You get stressed. You move into control. Now both of you are locked into a control battle. When you can suspend your fear, when you can transcend your fear, and you can calm yourself down, and you can breathe and connect and stay present and be mindful, you no longer seek to control, you seek to influence. And that's why relationship becomes so important, because relationship gives us the opportunity to influence our children. If you have a child who's been through trauma and been through abuse and all these other things, and they're controlling, then it's because they don't feel safe in that moment. They need to have control. Allow them to have that control within every reasonable means that you can. Allow them to have that control. Step back, observe, breathe, calm yourself down, connect, stay present, be mindful, be aware, and just see the fear. And that's what's going to bring me into the discussion about anger. See the fear in that moment. Slow down them, because if they move into control and then you move into control too, then you're both stressed out and scared, and they can't possibly feel safe, so they're just going to be more controlling. So I just want to plant that as a seed. Underneath control and anger, there's one very important thing, and it is fear. Try to, with every bit of you. I was just talking to a parent this morning, and she said, she's having these issues with her son, and I said, you have to see his emotional age. And so the reason I say that is because I really want you to see the fear under the anger. Underneath the anger and the control is fear. See the fear underneath the anger, and it stops being anger. And when it stops being anger, what happens is you feel less threatened and overwhelmed by it. When it stops being anger, when it stops being something that's a potential threat to you, then you are able to calm yourself in a different way, because your brain perceives it differently. Your amygdala doesn't see it as a threat when you don't see anger. When you see fear, your amygdala dials down automatically so you don't get overwhelmed. When you see fear, you're able to activate your heart chakras in a different way of openness, so you can connect to the child's fear. Once you can calm yourself down, you connect to the fear, respond to the fear. And that's why I've said for years and years and years, ignore the behavior, don't ignore the child. When you're focused on the behavior, you're coming from a place of fear. When you're focused on the behavior, you're coming from a place of fear. So you don't want to focus on the behavior, because it's not about the behavior. It's about the stress and the fear that's making the behavior manifest. So you've got to be able to get to the fear underneath the anger. And then the other part of that is, I want you to start being preventative in nature as opposed to interventive. We're always looking at our children when they're angry. Well, what was the lead up to the anger? Right? What was going on? What were the circumstances going on with the child before they hit that anger point? What are the sensory experiences the child has up into that anger? Now, I'm going to tell you, and this is the same thing I told this mom this morning. Most of your children have started back to school. They're coming home. They are exhausted. They are physiologically, physically, emotionally, cognitively exhausted. And she was talking about fourth graders with all this freaking homework. If you've got a child with an IEP, get no homework written into the IEP. Let me just tell you that. Have the IEP reevaluated as soon as possible. If you haven't had the IEP, get no homework written into the IEP. We got to stop this freaking homework stuff. Did you know that suicide amongst children increases by 40% when school is back into session? And kids go to school stressed out all day long, stressed out, utilizing their window of tolerance. Their window of tolerance is super small. Then they come home. They haven't been connected to mom and dad all day, to the family all day. Then they've got another hour worth of homework to do, or 2 hours worth of homework. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So if your child has an IEP, get no homework written into the IEP. Save yourself, save your child that hassle and that headache. So think preventatively when it comes to anger. So try to see the sensory activation and start creating regulation around that transition time. That's a major transition time. When your child gets home from school, you've got 15 minutes. That's the transition window. 15 minutes to see the child and meet the child's needs when they're in the midst of that transition. What can you do? What are 3 things you can do to increase stress? What are 3 things you can do to decrease stress? Do more of the 3 things that reduce stress and do less of the 3 things that increase stress for that 15-minute block of time. And for parents who are able to bottle feed their children, that is an ideal opportunity. A nice bottle at the very least. At the very least, make sure that child gets some food during that 15-minute increment. And some of you have really sensitive children. Sometime in late afternoon, early evening, there's another transition that they're going to go through. You need to create some regulation with them then. And yes, Grace, it is very, very hard. It can be very, very hard, especially, and I think that, Grace, you're probably talking about seeing the fear underneath the anger. Seeing fear underneath the anger becomes really, really hard when we get scared. When we get scared, all our brain is doing is looking for a threat. That's why breathing is so important. That's why calming yourself down is so important. That's why prevention is so important. That's why getting more attuned to your child and listening is so important. So you're able to regulate your own brain in the midst of that invitation to stress. And then, yes, Stefan, right back at you. This afternoon, so here's the major transition. Your children are going through transitions all the way through school. But morning time at home, morning time as soon as they get home from school, late afternoon, early evening can be another really important transition time, and then bedtime. Major transition times, all working towards soothing the circadian rhythms, increasing the window of tolerance, helping you to have a better overall day with your child. So there we have how to soothe a porcupine, talk a little bit about control and talk a little bit about anger. And I hope that's very helpful. Remember, guys, in any given situation, we always have 2 choices. We can continue to react from the same blueprints of stress and fear and overwhelm, or we can stop, we can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and we can choose love. I hope you guys can choose love. Big Papa loves you. God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you tomorrow.